Okay, good morning and welcome everyone. I'm excited to continue with our webinar series. See a lot of people joining now, which is great. And I'm going to allow one more minute for any late arrivals to join us. While we wait, just a reminder, as always, it's a webinar format. So all the attendees, you guys will all be muted throughout the presentation and we can handle questions at the end, but we'll get into a few of those details here shortly. Okay, hello and welcome to the latest in the IMS webinar series. I am Aaron Blair. I'll be your presenter. I've been working with IMS and Retail Pro for the past 17 years, doing everything from project management to implementation to training to, well, webinars. So what can you expect from these webinars? First and foremost, you can expect the webinar right here, right now. At the end of the webinar, we will be addressing questions. So if you have any questions, you can use the chat box and those messages will come directly to me. Webinar, as usual, should run about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the quality and quantity and depth of questions that we get. Additionally, we'll be introducing polls throughout the session. Your participation is always appreciated. Polls are anonymous and the results will just display to me as a percentage of the overall feedback. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just kick us off with a poll real quickly here. Basically, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to take a high-level look at some of the features and benefits of Retail Pro Prism, as well as some additional IMS offerings, and then really go through what the Prism upgrade process looks like, and really what any project process is going to look like with IMS. So for the first poll, let's direct this one towards Prism and simply going to ask, what has you most interested in Prism? So I'm going to go ahead and get that poll started. And as I said, if you guys should see an input there to be able to enter a response, and then I will go ahead and display those results after we've gotten some input. All right, so that poll should be live for you, and it looks like we are getting some responses already, so that's great. I'm going to go ahead and give everyone just a minute, and as I wait, I just want to start with just an opening thank you. Thank you to everyone for attending today. Certainly, I know everyone's busy, and thank you for allowing IMS to be your trusted business partner. Okay, just going to give about 15 more seconds. Let these come in. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to close up this poll. And basically what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing pretty much an even mix, about 40% and 40% need to get off my old version and interested in the new look and features. There is a small percentage of people, a specific business need that can't be handled by their older version. That I expected a little bit of that, and we'll get into a little bit of that as we look at Prism. But yeah, really just a split between old version, probably a lot of version 8 customers in that bucket, and then interested in the new look and features because it's new, right? People want to They want to look at the latest and greatest. They want to see what it's all about. So moving on. For today's topics, I want to start with sort of a why go to Prism before we get into the how to go to Prism or the process. And then second, I'm going to highlight some of the other offerings and considerations from IMS that will complement your Retail Pro system. And lastly, we will look at an overview of the upgrade process itself and really what to expect. So before we review some Prism features and highlights, just want to start with the version history of Retail Pro. And while there are likely some people on here based on the list of attendees who have experience that actually goes back further than version 8, version 8 is as far as we're going to go back today. So we're going to look at version 8 and version 9, mainly because version 8 is 20 years old. So we're not going to go any further back than that. But guess what? Even at 20 years old, it's still out there and it's still running. For a long time, Retail Pro continued to release updates and patches to account for industry changes, such as PCI compliance, and they've released versions simply to provide users with new features. Unfortunately, that had to come to an end for a couple of major reasons. One, as I said, it's 20 years old, and they have to focus on development of the future. It also gets harder to support as new technicians are not trained on all the versions. We actually have several technicians who've been with us for a long time who are very, very familiar with 8, even some familiar with 7. But we're now at a point where as we bring in and train new technicians, we're not training them on version 8, and I think people can understand that. And additionally, the most stable Windows operating system for version 8, which is Windows 7, that's reached an end of life for general support as well. Now, believe it or not, version 9 is actually 12 years old, and that has an impending end of life date. So if you're on 9, don't wait until support's gone for that as well. Move to Prism now, and you can eliminate the worry that comes along with the end of life. Okay, so how about Prism? I know a lot of you feel that Prism's pretty new, but in reality, it's 5 years old. They've already been over 20 releases and updates. Several of those have been what I'll call major releases. So from 1.0 to 1.2, 1, 2, and so on. And throughout those 5 years and all those releases, we've gotten to a current release that's very stable and established in the marketplace. And then the other thing I wanted to emphasize is that Prism's not Retail Pro 10, right? So we had 8, we had 9. This is not 10. It really is the next generation of Retail Pro software, and it is very different. It's very different than what you're used to with 8 or 9. Prism has a well-established presence among Retail Pro clients. So over those 5 years, we've picked up and upgraded anything from local retailers like Brew City Brands, Cape May, Museum Arts and Culture, to national and international brands like Puma, GNC, Under Armour, and Hugo Boss. So here's just a few examples of those, including our customer Cape May Wicker in the middle. I've been very happy with their move from version 8 to Prism. And we can provide multiple references that you can speak to directly about Prism and about the whole upgrade experience with IMS. Okay, so let's get into some of the highlights. When it comes to Prism, there are lots of great new features, and I just wanted to review a few of them before we kind of look at what that process is. So Prism's a completely new and updated interface, utilizes the same technology as websites. So that takes you beyond the basic screen design that you're currently used to on version 8 and version 9 with page layouts and your page manager. And it really allows you to create a POS experience and workflow that's completely unique to your business. It runs in a browser such as Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge. That allows for lightweight hardware, simplicity of use, and updates. Touch menus They're now built in, included in the base system. You would know them as presets in version 8. Email receipts. This is pretty much, I think, a standard now to be able to offer people that paperless receipt. So that's built in, and it's a simple option. So whether you're adding an existing customer to a transaction who you already have an email address for, or customers providing you their email address simply for a digital receipt, you don't need any type of special email server. I do it on my demo system with a basic Gmail address. So it really just needs an address to come back to. Promotions capability. This has been a huge focus of Retail Pro, and the module that is in there today for promotions is really kind of a culmination of that. For anyone who has experienced the promotions module in version 8, in version 9, I will tell you this is very different, and it is much better and much more robust. It's easy to navigate, it's simple to deploy, and there are just tons and tons of logical options to be able to walk through. The interface is very simple to use. And then I think one important, albeit a technical highlight that I want to kind of get across is the ability to create integrations to Prism through APIs. So the 15% of people who said that they may have some sort of business need that their current version doesn't support, be it 8 or 9, this may be the reason why. Because with open APIs, there's 4 different API formats. Not to get too technically deep into this, but those basically allow you to interface, integrate, and extract with Retail Pro Prism much more simply than you could in older versions. And if you're not familiar with the term API or you don't understand what I'm talking about, that's okay, because we have a full development staff and we can assist you with any of those specific needs. And then the last highlight that I wanted to speak to that might pique some interest is the fact that, yes, there's no more polling. Polling has gone away in Prism. That includes version 8 polling and version 9 ECM. So Prism works on a totally new, it's a kind of a standard model that's called publish and subscribe. It's virtually real time and it's completely hands off under normal operation. Essentially what happens is each point of sale has its own local copy of the data so that it can act independently. And if the point of sale is going to share, say, receipts with the server, as long as the connection is there, it'll share a receipt every time a receipt happens, right? So it's real time with your internet connection live. If it's not live, it'll just hold it and it'll wait and it'll send it later. But there's no scheduling, there's no 15-minute or 1 hour or overnight cycles. It simply pushes the data when it's available. If you make a change to inventory at the back of house, you update a price, add a new item, those simply push out, and as long as the point of sale has a connection, it'll grab that new information. So the server is publishing it and the point of sale is subscribing it. It's kind of that publish and subscribe model. And, you know, this is really just kind of a very, very rudimentary representation of what that architecture looks like. So as I said, publish and subscribe, you've got your database in the middle, whether that's Oracle or whether that's MySQL, and then you've got your stores, your point of sale, even your website, your eCommerce, and anything else that you might connect to. Those are all subscribers from the main, and they just pick up the data. Okay, so again, those are just kind of some high-level Prism highlights, but I wanted to talk about some additional considerations as well. Some other things that we offer that we'd be happy to take you through demos of, talk to you about on a one-on-one basis, and I just want to highlight what those are. The things I want to highlight today are the fact that we have our own IMS Cloud Hosting. We have our own IMS Managed Services. We do networking through one of our partners, and I have a couple slides I'll show you about that. Of course, e-commerce integration, and e-commerce integration has come a long way since version 8 and even since version 9. And then just some new various hardware options and some mobile stuff. For many of you who have been on earlier webinars in this series, you've actually seen more in-depth information and webinars on each one of these topics. Today, we're going to do a little bit more of a high level, 1 or 2 slides on each one. And then again, talk about the process of upgrading, the process of getting involved with these other options that I'm showing here. So IMS Cloud Hosting has become a very popular option as people look to minimize the footprint of physical equipment and eliminate the headache of server maintenance. So let's start simple and talk about what is the cloud. The cloud is simply a collection of computers that exist in data centers around the world that you access through the internet, right? So it's still a physical computer. It just sits somewhere else instead of in your office or at your store. And that provides a major advantage to you because someone else is managing these computers. In our cloud hosting environment, IMS is managing the operating system, Windows, updates, antivirus, backup, and so many other things. You simply connect to it from anywhere you have an internet connection and you go. Not to mention just the physical aspect of having a server in your store. Maybe it's in a closet somewhere. Maybe it's sitting in an office and the fans are loud and it's hot and it's collecting a lot of dust around it. So those are things you don't have to worry about because IMS, we have our servers in data centers, as I said, around the country, around the world that are secure. They are climate controlled. They are monitored 24/7. Both remotely and by physical employees who make sure their only job is to keep these boxes up and running. This also means that your retail pro back office is anywhere you are, any time of day or night, because it's a server that you have access to through a simple internet connection. And because it is a server, it's just like if you had the physical box at your location. You could still have shared files, other applications that you use, certainly anything that you're going to install on there. You know, we'd want to know about it just to make sure it's not going to affect Retail Pro or affect your resources. But this way you can achieve maximum value on that cloud investment by utilizing it for some other applications and purposes aside from just Retail Pro. And, you know, honestly, the biggest advantage, I'll come back to it again, it's the backup and the failover that cloud hosting provides you. So our servers are located, as I said, in secure, purpose-built facilities. They're monitored 24/7, 365. Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, doesn't matter. Those places were designed to house and host servers, and that's it. They have better security than most banks, disaster prevention measures to cover pretty much any possible scenario. You got to understand that your data is going to be in similar data centers to what banks use and, you know, high-end universities, Fortune 500 companies. So you can believe that your data is going to be secure there. Data is not only maintained, it's also backed up for quick access in the event you have a failure. And we can even talk to you about going a step further and having a full failover server for almost immediate recovery. So what that means is simply the server that you are on goes down for some reason, it will fail over to a replicated mirror server that will take the place of it. It will take the name and the IP address, and quite simply, every device that you have that connects to it won't know the difference between one or the other. As far as the cost goes, because I know that's, you know, always a question people have, you know, it's not as much as you think. I'll just put it that way. I'm not going to get into specific pricing, but I can tell you that feature for feature, we are actually the lowest cost cloud solution of all the major providers out there, including Amazon, and we'd be happy to show you that side by side, what you pay versus what you get. And remember, the cost is not just an upfront investment of buying a server versus annual cloud hosting. It's the cost of overall maintenance of the server versus a fully maintained and monitored cloud server from IMS. And also it's the cost of uptime, because disasters don't happen on a schedule. We have lots of examples of down servers that have caused major issues throughout the years. There's always one IMS customer. I've given this example. Some of you may have even heard it before. We had a large university bookstore several years ago, had their own on-site server, and during Parents' Weekend, where they typically did about $1 million in that weekend, they estimated their revenue loss of that down physical server that they managed and maintained to be about 10% of their revenue that weekend, or $100,000, as they scrambled to do manual sales, get replacement parts, and really just the amount of people that they feel like got turned away because they just weren't going to wait in the lines and wait through it all. By the way, guys, let's keep the questions coming in. Certainly, I'm getting several people who want to know the end of life date for version 9. So that is one we will cover off on. But any other questions that you guys may have, I see a couple others coming in as well. Please just put them in there in the chat as we go through them. As the slide says, IMS Managed Services, this allows you to focus on being a retailer, not IT and systems administration managers. So this is a service that we're offering now to help you with anything from IT services to application services, even applications beyond Retail Pro, cloud services, as we just discussed, and even some systems and business operations processes. So if you look at this chart here, this essentially shows you what things need to be done, right? What work types need to be handled to run Retail Pro, to run your business. You need an infrastructure, so your network and your power. Systems operations. Systems operations are going to be, the maintenance of Retail Pro, the maintenance of some of the applications, business operations, how you utilize the product, the software app itself, and then development, really anything that's out of the box that you guys need done. So from an IMS, or from a standpoint of who handles that, you can handle it internally. IMS can handle it. A third party can handle it. Third party might be for your network or your power infrastructure, right? Or any combination of those. Now, within IMS, we break that out 3 ways. We have your sales account manager. So if you came, for example, with software development and said, hey, I need a plugin that does the following, then that's going to start with a sales opportunity. Your technical account manager, they're going to be the ones managing kind of the structure of it, the implementation of it, and then the support desk for your day-to-day stuff. But at a real high level, what IMS Managed Services is it's an opportunity for you to say, hey, I'd like you to take some of this off my plate. All I want to do is run my retail business. That's fine. Talk to us. We've structured many plans for people. Anything from we're just going to check that your version 8 polling happens every morning, to we're going to manage your network and we're going to do threat assessments and malware checks and things like that on point of sale stations. So you talk to us, reach out, and let's see what we can do to help you with that. And then the third thing, this is the networking that I was talking about. So we have a pretty nice and exciting offering now with Cisco Meraki. If you haven't heard of Meraki, I would guess that most people have heard of Cisco. Cisco, when you talk networking, pretty much they are the gold standard. Meraki is a company that does, or was a company that does cloud managed IT solutions that Cisco saw a real opportunity in and purchased several years ago. So it's a complete cloud managed solution, does wireless, switching, security, and many other things, including security cameras. It's integrated software, hardware, and cloud, and it is among Cisco's fastest growing portfolio. So we are a full partner with Meraki now. I know we had an email go out to customers not that long ago, and I've already had multiple conversations and demos for that, so I'd be happy to continue doing those. And just a quick look, this is what the Meraki dashboard looks like. So when I say it's cloud-based, you literally go to a website and you log in, and you can see your entire organization. You can see things like the store maps and layouts. This is going to show you where you have access points and where your Wi-Fi coverage is good or not so good. If you have security cameras, you can access them all through here. You can access the video. They even have a bunch of stuff, third-party partners that work through their API to do things. That was a great example. I was on a webinar a couple weeks ago with Meraki, talking about some of the third-party integrations that have been done. And one company did an integration utilizing the motion detection from the cameras to understand how many people were coming in and out of the store. And they could put on their website an actual live counter to say, hey, we have 3 locations. See which one is pretty full, see which one is maybe more empty and easier to get in and out of. So a lot of great stuff that we can do with that. But at its core, basic networking, the ability to, do routing, to do wireless access points, and cloud manage all of it. And this is where, we talk about who can do different things. Well, maybe you have a local IT company you work with, and that's fine. They would be interested in this as well, because this is going to give them the ability to have better management and better control over the network that they're helping you oversee. Built-in malware protection, automatic threat assessment. You can even go in simply, one of the options is it's a PCI printout. So if you get PCI audited, you can print it out and it'll show them essentially everything that they already need to know for PCI. Now for e-commerce, simple 2 slides. And the first one is just, I think what everyone already knows is the fact that e-commerce sales worldwide are going up every year, and they're predicted to keep doing that. So from 2014 to present, 2020, you can see the growth there, and it's just expected to continue to go up and up for several/many years. And let's talk for a minute about how e-commerce works with Retail Pro. So we have a couple of options as far as the platform to use, but essentially they both do the same thing. What they do is, if you look on the left, you can see that Retail Pro is going to be your inventory management system of record. And that's going to feed your unified commerce engine that will feed your website, right? Whether that's Shopify or whether that's Magento, WooCommerce, BigCommerce. These are all pre-built integrations that we already have. Then from there, that can feed other things like Amazon or eBay or some of these reseller platforms beyond just your website. Of course, full integration with things like ShipStation for shipping management, and then everything's going to report back to Retail Pro to alleviate inventory and to report those sales all in one place. Now, I'm going to tell you this is not unique to Prism, but I will tell you that the integration has really advanced and deepened within Prism, and the ability to use that open API versus the way that it's done in version 8 and version 9. Because I'll just keep reiterating, version 8 and version 9 are old technology, right? 20 years is a dinosaur in technology terms, and 12 years is not far behind it. So certainly talk to us. Talk to us about your e-commerce site. If you're already on Prism, great, let's get it integrated. If you're not, let's talk about what that would look like, doing that kind of as a 2-phase process. Get you upgraded, get you online. Those are the 2 things that you really need to be doing right now. You need to be on Prism, and you need to be selling online if you're not already. And then the last of our list of additional considerations is just hardware. Just wanted to give you kind of a snapshot or a sampling of some different options, including all-in-one mobile device. You see there on the left, has everything from a printer to NFC payments to an EMV card slot to a barcode scanner. Some kiosk options. There's just an example of a kiosk stand in the middle, and then a couple of fixed units, but just some more modern looking options. And listen, in many cases, your existing hardware, including your peripherals, may already be compatible with Prism. So part of the initial upgrade process that we get into on the sales side, we do a full hardware analysis with you, right? We review everything that you already have so we can help save money wherever you can, right? Because if you've already got updated USB receipt printers or updated USB scanners or Bluetooth devices, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they won't work with Prism. We just need to know what they are. In some cases, we're going to say no. It's too old of a connection. It's a parallel or it's a serial connection. And the fact is they just won't work. But if we can save you money and have you continue to use stuff that may be newer, great, let's do it. Let's do that as part of the process. And speaking of the process, I am going to cover this off in 3 areas. The basic process, what is it? The timeline, how long does it take? And then run you through a little bit of our IMS project management. Now, before we jump into the timeline, I wanted to do a second poll, and I'm actually pretty curious about the responses on this one. This is basically how long or what is your expectation of the timing of a Prism upgrade? So anything from 2 to 4 weeks to 4 to 6 to 6 to 8, or do you think it will take longer than 8 weeks? And I'm curious to see, as I said, what the responses are here, because I think that many people have different expectations of what that timing actually looks like. So as usual, I'm just going to give 30 seconds here, let people get some responses in. I see some coming in already. All right. Okay, yeah, still coming in. And interestingly enough, looks like they are leveling out a bit from where they first started. And just going to give about 15 more seconds. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. So this one started out very heavy on the 2 to 4 weeks, and then really shifted towards 4 to 6 and 6 to 8. About 63% of the responses are anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, with a small window of over 8 weeks. So typically 6 to 10 weeks. So this is really going to be that 6 to 8 weeks, or even that over 8 weeks. And, I want to emphasize the word typical, right? When we say the typical time is 6 to 10 weeks, we've had customers take less time. We've had others take more time, right? Because of course, a lot of it depends on you. You still need to run a business. We need to work around that. You need to be involved in data cleanup, which means making decisions about your inventory. So we have to account for that time. And of course, training, right? There's a number of hours of training that we can't make take any less time. And then there's just many other aspects of the project. Anything from what type of business you're in to how many locations you have, right? If you're a single store that sells 100 SKUs and your data's clean in version 9, sure, you can be way on the bottom end of that timeline. But if you've got multiple locations and version 8 data that needs DVS and cleanup, you need to spread out the training over the course of several weeks, right? Then it's going to take longer. For our side of it, we can do it very quickly. We've done this many, many times. But, it's a process between all of us. And that is really where we come up with this 6 to 10 weeks as just kind of a level set. So the basic process is laid out here, right? We've got the sales process. This is doing the demo and discovery, the hardware analysis. Let's figure out where you're at, where you need to be, and how we get you there. Then your sales account manager is going to go through a detailed quote with you. Maybe it's just a Prism upgrade, maybe it's the cloud offering, maybe you're integrating e-commerce, right? Now, certainly those things will change your timeline as well. If you are doing multiple steps such as e-commerce integration, I want to be clear that when we say 6 to 10 weeks, we're talking about the Prism upgrade itself really as a phase one. Some of those other things may go on during the process. Certainly, if you're getting a cloud server, that's going to be part of the upgrade process. But things like e-commerce integration, we may wait until that Prism is installed and ready to go, but you may start cleaning up some of your data or cleaning up your website as an aside to that. And then really to end the sales process is the sign-off. You say, yes, let's go for this, let's do it. Then we move into the implementation process. The implementation is going to start with a project kickoff call and a scope review, right? What did you guys review in a demo? What are the things you're looking for? What are your use cases for Prism? And what are your needs? And then on our end, it's the procurement, staging of equipment. Between the both of us, it's data cleanup and data conversion. Those are different, certainly between 8 in Prism and 9 in Prism. But we can do data conversion. So certainly nice to have what you already have coming with you, your inventory, your vendors, your departments, your customers. Training. Training is going to be a piece that is really important, obviously. And in many cases, we've seen where that training really gives us insight that people who are upgrading to Prism had some gaps in knowledge to what they really could be doing in version 8 and version 9. So this isn't just training on Prism and how to use it. This is really overall looking at your business process and seeing what you could be doing differently, regardless of whether it only existed in Prism or whether you had it before and just didn't know it. Installation and implementation. Again, this can be a big factor on the timeline. Right? If this is a single store remote implementation, or is this 10 stores that we're doing on site in different areas throughout the country? There's just a lot of coordination that goes into stuff like that. And then, go live and post implementation steps and support. And this is important, I think, for people to understand and have an expectation of what that means, right? So there's go live, which is we're turning on Prism and you're starting to use it. There's post-installation steps. These are going to be some of the tweaks, the changes, the things where you said, hey, I want this set this way, but now that we've tried it for a day, let's change it to this way. And then the support, where you're going to get fully turned over to the support desk as anybody else with day-to-day issues or concerns or questions. And of course, all that's going to be handled through project management. And this is a piece that I think a lot of people have some confusion on, right? What is project management? What does it mean at IMS? And what is our process? So our process, first and foremost, is you have a dedicated project manager, but we also take a team approach. This means that while you have a dedicated project manager, we also have other project managers who may be stepping in for certain pieces. A lot of the time that has to do with just timing, right? If you need something done during a certain period of time, it may be faster to get you on one project manager's schedule versus the other for that particular section. The discovery on business processes and current retail pro setup, right? We talked about that. Prism will be different. And this is probably the most important point I can make here is we're going to set it up to work as best we can with what you do, but keeping in mind that things you did 20 years ago in version 8 may be different and probably will be different in Prism. So it's more important that we make your business processes work within Prism than we try to manipulate Prism to do exactly what you were doing before, right? As if we're getting from A to Z without veering off too much and it's getting you the same result, that to us is the important part. That is what we really need to be focused on. And then coordination. Coordination's key to keep your project on track. I think that's just probably just an obvious one that goes without saying. We need to be coordinating with you. You need to be coordinating with us to keep on schedule. The other thing our project managers do, they track time and expense against the project. You know, as many of you know, you've seen quotes. Certain things are quoted in days or hours, and someone needs to have an accountability of that time so that we can get your project, the one you signed off on, done within that time, and expense for things like travel, right? If we gave you a travel estimate, we want to be able to stay within that. That means scheduling correctly so that we're not buying last minute flights or staying in expensive hotels because they're the only thing left, right? All of that is being done in the background by your project manager and being communicated to you through weekly progress calls. And that's not to say you won't talk more often than that, right? If there are things that need to get done during the week, absolutely, but at a minimum, a weekly progress call. You know, and in some cases, that call may be very short. It may be, hey, we can't schedule more training for 2 weeks because some of the key staff is on vacation. All right, well, we're just going to check in next week, see if there's anything else that you need in the meantime. Otherwise, we're going to just continue to wait for that training. Also, we use project management software. So we have a full IMS suite that basically walks us from the sales process to where that quote gets signed or approved, turned over to implementation, project management. It creates, you know, I almost want to go, and I do, I want to go back a slide and say, you know, you see this process here. I came up with 6 points for the purpose of a webinar, but in reality, when you look at a project, especially a Prism upgrade project, there are well over 100 steps that need to be completed and sub-steps and tasks and activities. So all of that's tracked within our system. And this is a big part of what our project managers do and what those project management hours are for on your quote is for them to run this project correctly from start to finish. And then they are really there to help you through that transition to post go live support, what we talked about before, right? Making sure that the implementation was completed, making any tweaks or adjustments, getting any list of follow-up items, you know, helping you transition maybe to the next project of e-commerce, and then moving you over to live day-to-day support, which really is the goal, you know. And our goal at this point is for everyone to be on a support contract, so that there is no question of, well, this was part of the project or this is really just general support. You know, at a minimum, certainly a PSA having some hours, or a PPSA having some hours on account, but really this is why we thrive on getting people on support contracts, so you can simply call, have your issue resolved, and get back to doing business. So what are the next steps? Right, the next steps out of here, I know this was a lot of information to absorb. As I said, for people who have seen previous webinars, this was a little bit of a mashup of some of that information, but really in the same 1 hour window. But let's talk about some next steps, and then I'll field some of these questions. So first step is reach out to us for a custom demo for one, some, or many of the topics that we covered today. Right, if you aren't on Prism yet, and you want to see that, great, let's set it up. If you are and you want to see how e-commerce works, or the accounting link, or really any of the pieces and parts, you want to talk about managed services, then reach out to us. Reach out to your sales account manager, and let's get something on the calendar. I've been doing more demos than ever lately, typically 2 to 3 a day, but certainly we'd be happy to fit you in relatively quickly to really show you the product line. And in conjunction with that, if this is for an upgrade, let's talk about your upgrade path based on what version you are on and what your exact needs are. And like I said, if you're already on Prism, let's talk about what else we can do to help. And after we get your upgrade path figured out and your account manager provides you options, let's get you on the schedule. We have been extremely busy lately with upgrades and other projects, especially as we get closer towards the holiday season. People are trying to get things done. We are trying to help them get things done. So the sooner you get in the queue, the sooner we have you up and running on Prism or any one of the other offerings that we've talked about here today. Okay, let's take a look at a few questions. I think we're doing just perfect on time. Let me go over here to my chat and start scrolling through these things. So I was not kidding. I got 4 people who asked me, and I should have just put this right in the slide, what the end of life date is for version 9. So I want to approach this question in 2 ways. And number one, tell you we don't know the exact date. Our understanding is probably sometime later next year, so later 2021, which will come up fast. But the second part of that question is, what does end of life mean, right? Does it mean that it's just going to not open one day? No. It means 2 things. It means that Retail Pro will no longer continue to update the product. And I'm talking any updates. I'm talking PCI compliance updates, any type of feature addition or bug fix. They're not going to happen. And then the other part of that is level 2 support. So level 2 support is going to be when an issue needs to be escalated from IMS as your partner to Retail Pro as the developer. They will not field questions related to version 9. That's what end of life means. They're going to stop supporting it. They're going to stop updating it. It's not going to stop running. V8 is already end of life, and I can tell you there are people out there still running it. Okay. E-commerce direct API link with my Shopify website. So a direct API link is absolutely possible. We have people who do it on their own. If you're not one of those people, we have a couple of options of the pre-built integrations to, as I said, Shopify, which is the #1 that we do, right? Shopify is just far and away what we get more often than not. But we also get some WooCommerce, some Magento, and as of late, I would say a little bit more BigCommerce as well. So those 4 integrations are already done. But absolutely, if you want to do a direct API link with your own Shopify website on Prism, Prism is an open API. There's 4 types of APIs, and you can go for it. That is essentially what the 2 offerings that we have already are. They're just pre-written for you. Can the cloud-based solution do the video recording from the security cameras so I can get rid of the DVRs? Absolutely. Yeah, and I think about this here actually in my own home, working in my home office. I have security cameras around the house. I have a DVR and NVR, and I'm constantly checking and changing and fixing and moving files off of the hard drive. I would love to go to my own personal cloud-based NVR solution. But yes, absolutely. They do have a certain, depending on the camera model, and we can get you information on this, they have a certain amount of storage built in, just for the fact that, you know, you want to have at least maybe the last day or so locally saved. But otherwise, yes, cloud storage is available. Can I move straight from RPro V8 to Prism? Is the Prism back office ready for prime time? Okay, so I'm going to take both of those questions. Those are both good questions. V8 to Prism, yes. It is a different process than version 9, but it is possible, and we do it. We have done it many times. There may be some differences as far as bringing your data, so having to do things like DVS, because you're coming from an old flat file database to a relational database. And relational databases, they're not as forgiving. So you can't have things like duplicate item SIDs and some other various things, duplicate UPCs. So there are just some additional steps and some different steps, but absolutely. Now, is the Prism back office ready for prime time? That is a good question, and that's not one I'm going to avoid. I'm going to answer it. So right now with Prism, if you are a retailer that doesn't use certain back office functions, then absolutely you can run 100% off of the Prism interface. There is another piece which is called the retail integration layer. That exists simply to do some things like integrations, right? So things like the accounting link and things like e-commerce, they are feeding through that integration layer, which is not directly in the web Prism interface, but 100% you can utilize Prism in the web interface, 100% out of the box, front and back. Let's see. How fluid is communication? Having trouble with RD ICE. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about that. That's the e-commerce. This is a follow-up question. When I say we have two options, RD ICE is one of the options, or retail dimensions. The other option is 24/7 commerce, who I have a demo set up on my own machine. I'd be happy to show anyone that. So that's another option. But if you were going to go the route of the direct API connection between Prism and Shopify, then I would tell you the communication should be better, because as with RD ICE or any of the other integrations, they utilize some different methods of doing things that, to be quite honest, are additional steps. So be happy to have a deeper conversation with you about that. When 9 ends, will there be a 10? No. So Prism really is what's next, right? So there's 8, there's 9, and then they stopped with the numbers and went to Prism. Prism is the current and latest version of Retail Pro 9. How much customer history and inventory will carry over? That's a good question. So certainly your we'll call it flat data. Things like inventory, vendors, departments, customers, right? So this is your list information. That stuff is no problem. Not to say that getting history is a problem, but it's a different process. And that's something we can talk to you specifically about, how much you would want to bring over, really what version you're on, and what the options for that would be. Let's see, cost of the cloud server. So I don't have the specific numbers in front of me, number one. And number two, that is a discussion to be had with your sales account manager as far as what that looks like and what those specific numbers will be. A lot of it depends on how, what resources you need, how many connections. So there's a lot of variables than just saying a cloud server costs this per year. We are getting a lot of good questions. I'm going to go ahead. I've got just a couple more here. That ought to take us right up on our hour. Just filtering through some of the duplicates. Already talked about V9 end of life. Okay. What's the advantage of buying Cisco stuff, so the Meraki, through IMS instead of just getting it myself? Well, one of the advantages is we're going to get you a good price on it because we are a certified partner with Meraki. You can find Meraki stuff on the internet. I'm not going to tell you you can't, because if I did, you'd go Google it right now. But what you're going to get is you're going to get through some third-party retailers who I can tell you are not certified Meraki partners, because that's not how they do business or distribution. So we're going to be able to get you a great price, and we can assure you that we're a direct partner, which means we have a direct line to partner support, as well as any of the warranty support that you're going to get with the Meraki stuff. Can I watch this webinar on YouTube? I've not been able to watch entirely during work hours. Yeah, absolutely. Right. We know that 11 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday is, maybe not a time where you can sit here for a full hour and listen to me talk. So there will be a recording of this. There will be various ways to rewatch it, and our marketing team will put something out to everyone who's attended here to be able to have access to that. Is training limited to a set number of hours, or is it variable depending on the customer? It's not limited to a set number of hours, right? We have the number of hours that we think is typical. what we think that a customer going from 8 to Prism or 9 to Prism really needs. Number one, for differences, because of course there's going to be differences. And number two, one thing I mentioned before is there might be just some baseline stuff that honestly you don't know through no fault of your own. It's just either you were trained 20 years ago and don't remember everything, or you acquired the system, right? As when you acquired a business and you just kind of walked into it, or you had Retail Pro through another dealer years ago who maybe didn't provide as much training or as much one-on-one. And that's fine, because what we want to do is we want to figure out what you don't know that the system can do, and we want to help you with that. So no, there's no set number of hours, right? I would say there's a minimum number of hours, there's a typical number of hours, but really it's as much or as little as you need in order to feel comfortable, and for us to feel comfortable that you're not going to come back and say, I don't like Prism because I don't know how to use it. Let's see, does this change back office screens and function? Look, the answer with any new software is yes, because this is a web-based interface. This is a browser-based, I should say, interface. The screens look different. You don't have the same type of way to move things around like you did in 8 or you did in 9, but that's a good thing, right? There are a ton more options to configure and customize the screen. We can help you with those. You can do them if you have the knowledge. And the functions, I'm going to say overall are the same, but that doesn't mean that everything is going to act the same way it did before. Some of the stuff will change, either because it was just felt that it was a better way to do it in Prism now, or because simply, excuse me, there are just different ways that different technologies and platforms have to do things. Man, a lot of good questions coming in. Let's see. Talked about that. We talked about the shopping carts. Talked about the differences. Yeah, what are some key differences between Prism and other versions? The key differences are the underlying technology, the interface and platform itself, and then certainly there are a list of kind of some nuances and things like that. Many for the better, many added features, many things that are just done better now. So certainly let's talk one-on-one, let's get a demo, and let's go through your specific questions. We talked about post-live support. We talked about end of life. Got that one a few times. And I think that is it. So that was probably a good 12 or 15 questions. Really took us right up on the hour, which I think is great. So if I don't see any other questions come in here in the next 30 seconds while I say thank you, then I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. And that really is what I wanted to do, is I just wanted to say thank you. Like I said, this is an hour out of your day during business hours, and I appreciate you sticking around, especially people who stuck around, asked questions, and really been interactive here towards the end, because to me, this is the best part. This is the part where we get to have a little bit of, like I said, more interaction, some honest answers, and really give you some feedback beyond just what I put together on some PowerPoint slides. So thank you. We're going to have many upcoming webinars. We already have a list of topics put together. So please look for one every month that we're going to do these. You can, I believe, subscribe through the new service that we're using for webinars. We're using a new platform, which I just like a lot better than what we were using before. So there's some options to auto subscribe to upcoming ones, and you'll find an option coming up here very quickly to be able to watch a recording or a rebroadcast. Again, thank you. Appreciate the time, and hope everyone has a great rest of the day. And it's Thursday already, so everyone have a great weekend coming up.